tonight, David's going to come up and talk about IRAs, how to have real estate in them. He's an expert at it. He runs a company called Freedom Growth. They're consultants to the industry. Unlike the custodians who are great, they're gatekeepers. David works with all of them. He kind of way up here helps you. So would you welcome with me, David Coe. All the way from Manhattan Beach.
Yeah, I actually left today at 1:30 just to make sure I was here on time, because whatever you do on that drive, what you have to do is schedule a meeting halfway through to miss the rush hour traffic. So it did take me 5 hours to get here today, but I did have a meeting. Okay, so anyway, enough about me. How you guys doing tonight? Good. First of all, Ted, that was really cool stuff. I tell you, one of the things that we do a lot is we look at, we'll search stuff on the IRS website, just trying to find information about what you can do, what you can't do. And he's right, it is the worst search engine of all time. So honestly, the 10 hours it's going to take me to drive down here was worth just to get that tip. So some really good stuff. We're going to talk tonight about owning real estate and self-directed IRA. And as you kind of heard from the introductions, we have quite a few self-directed custodians here. Usually when I walk into a room, there's realtors everywhere. You can just kind of stand up and stretch and you'll hit a realtor or two. Tonight it's a self-directed custodian, right? Just stand up, you'll probably knock one on the ear, so be careful. We are not a custodian. That's not what we do. We act more as a consultant. And how many people here have a self-directed IRA? That's awesome. So a few years ago I would do this pitch and maybe 4 or 5 people would raise their hand. It seems to be that this kind of investing is gathering a lot more steam, popularity. I always explain it to people, I look at self-directed IRAs like Macs versus PCs. And of course, I'm a Mac guy, so I have a self-directed IRA. Not everyone's going to do it. It's not for everyone. But eventually, this thing's going to get enough traction where more and more people understand it. They may not utilize it, but at least they understand what's happening. That seems to be the industry trend. Karen Hall actually worked for Uterx. She was at RETA last week, which is there's now like a trade association for these custodians. And self-directed IRAs are up close to 20% year over year. Still a very small percentage of the overall industry, but something that's growing very, very well. So what I did is I basically built a company that helps people invest in real estate using self-directed IRAs or self-directed retirement accounts. I'm going to talk a lot about IRAs, but just know that it's kind of an overarching term for retirement account. Do you need an IRA? Do you need a 401k? Should you have a pension plan? The answer is, I don't know, maybe. It kind of depends on you and what you're looking to do. So the first thing that we'll do when someone comes to us is we'll kind of help figure out what kind of account makes the most sense for them. And sometimes it's even what custodian makes the most sense. They're all a little different. I know when Brian was presenting, someone was asking Brian about his fees. His fees are different than Uterx fees, which are different than Pensco's fees versus in-trust fees. They all have a different fee structure. And really what matters for you is what kind of investor you want to be. Are you making multiple investments? Are you making a single investment? When you're looking at these companies, that's one of the things you want to get a really good sense of is, what are you going to do with it? You kind of want to start with the end in mind. So from the first part of what we'll do with someone is we'll kind of help give them some guidance on what their options are from a self-directed standpoint. We also act as real estate investment advisors. And because I'm not a custodian and we're not holding anyone's money, we are allowed to make investment advice, but we just do it in real estate. So my background is for the last 5 years, people have been coming to us and asking, how do I invest my money in my self-directed IRA in real estate? So that's my background. What we do is we take real estate and put it inside the IRA. Okay, now that's a safe, because that's really all an IRA is. It's just an account. Now it's not as fancy as that safe in the mattress in Spain, and it has a couple more tax advantages. But really, you notice money didn't come out of the safe to buy real estate. Real estate went into the IRA, and that's the first misconception people have. They believe that you have to pull the money out of the IRA to buy real estate, and you're going to incur all these taxes. Well, that's not true. Your IRA can own real estate, and that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to cover kind of 3 parts of this thing. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do a little intro to self-directed accounts. Those of you that were here early for Brian's presentation, some of this might be a little redundant. I may touch on some things a little deeper. But then we're actually going to go through some case studies. I've got 3 clients that have some type of retirement account they wanted to self-direct. We're going to kind of walk you through what they did, how they did it, and the types of things that they bought. And then we're going to have a final exam. It's just a yes or no, raise your hand type of exam, but I do want to see if you guys are paying attention. So. All right, so we're going to start off with, first of all, the introduction to self-directed retirement accounts. If you want a copy of the presentation and don't want to be taking notes furiously, if you text FREEDOM to 24587, we'll send you a copy of the PDF of the slides. So if anyone's interested, text FREEDOM. I won't be, upset if you pull out your cell phone and I'll know now you're just texting FREEDOM through. So if you're interested in getting a copy of the presentation, that's one way you can do it. What the IRS says, it doesn't tell you what you can do with your self-directed IRA. It tells you what you can't do. Okay, so what you can't do with an IRA or a 401k is you can't buy collectibles. So if you see a nice Persian rug or perhaps a Monet painting or stamp collection, a fancy car, that is considered a collectible. And while it does rise in value, it's prohibited from the IRS. They do not let you buy it. You cannot buy alcohol, which is a bummer. I mean, especially for me. But you can't own that stuff in an IRA. Okay, a coin collection, is something that you can't own. Now you can buy foreign currency, but you can't buy something that's considered a collectible in the eyes of the IRS. You can't buy life insurance. So if you want to buy a life insurance policy, the IRS prevents that as well. And you also cannot buy stock in an S corporation. And that's probably just as much a rule on S corps, where they don't allow ERISA money coming into them. But that's something that you can't do. Okay? Anything else you want to do is legal, as long as you don't deal with certain people. Okay? The first person that you can't deal with is yourself. Okay? You and your IRA are two totally separate legal entities, and you can't commingle that fund, that interaction. That's like the biggest thing the IRS looks for, right? I get this question once a week, hey, I have money in a self-directed IRA, can I use it to buy a house, and can I live in it? Well, you can't do that, because obviously you would be living in something owned by your IRA, and that would be self-dealing. You also can't deal with those that are considered your lineal ascendants and descendants. Okay, so parents, grandparents, children, grandchildren, you can't deal with them. You can go sideways all day long. So your brothers, sisters, cousins, aunts, uncles are all perfectly legal. And I don't know why. The only thing I can tell you is that at some point in time in 1973, a congressman wanted to do business with his brother. So he said, that's fine, but you can't do your parents. We have to draw the line somewhere. That's about all I got. You also can't deal with your spouse's immediate family as well. Okay, so if you think about it, it's up and down on the family tree, it's fine. And actually now that we have a South American Pope, it's probably down and up. Up and down. But you can't go sideways, that's fine. Okay? You also can't deal with those that are fiduciaries for your IRA. So if you do deal with a self-directed custodian, you can't get into a deal with them, because that would be a crooked transaction. Some of the things that you can't do beyond just the fact that you can't buy something that your IRA already owns or vice versa, is you also can't provide services to your IRA. So if you're a really good contractor and you get a great deal on framing a house, but if you owned it with your IRA, you can't come in and frame that house, right? Because you're now providing services to your IRA and you are a disqualified party. Now you can pay someone to do it all day long, as long as it's not someone who's a lineal descendant of descendant. Does that make sense? Yeah?
You manage those people that you hire?
All day long. Manage them, have them invoice you, you can pay an invoice, and you have to pay for that out of your IRA, but you can't physically do the work. But absolutely, yeah, you can pay people to do it. And if anyone has questions, raise your hand. Go ahead.
If you're a realtor and you're buying a property for yourself to put into the IRA, are you allowed to represent yourself in
Okay, so you're going right for the advanced 404 stuff. So yeah, it's a great question, and I'm a realtor as well. So this question was, if you're a realtor, can you represent yourself in the transaction, right? Okay, what do you guys think? Can you do that?
No.
Yes, you can. Can you get paid to do it?
No.
No, you can't. Can you reduce the price of the property, the value of whatever that buying commission would have been? No, you can't do that. Okay? So what I always recommend to realtors is, first of all, even the fact can you do it, it's a little tricky. I would recommend you don't do it. If you've got and by the way, who's a realtor in the room? Okay, I lied. There's more realtors than self-directed custodians. So half of us are realtors in the room. find another realtor, have them represent you in your transaction, and you represent them in their transaction. You can both get a commission. It's clean, it's easy. Don't represent yourself. So what can go in an IRA? Okay, well, here's some stuff that you guys know. Obviously, real estate. You're all here for a real estate seminar. Obviously, you can put real estate inside of a self-directed IRA. Cash, stocks, mutual funds. Which, by the way, I love that this is an ad for someone who is advising on mutual funds. She wrote, "A better way of investment." Make sure you know who you're dealing with when you're getting financial advice. Precious metals are perfectly fine. You can't physically hold them, but there are ways that you can bank these types of things. Most of the self-directed custodians have a process where someone else has to hold the actual metal, but you can own that with your IRA. Foreign currency, a lot of people doing Forex trading. It's something you can do. Bonds, of course, you can do. Be careful though, interest rates are going up. You can buy private business or a share of a private business with your IRA. So we have one of my neighbors actually opened up an ice cream shop. He has 2 investors in his ice cream shop that did that deal through a self-directed IRA. So that's possible. I have another client that 3 of the last 5 years, they entered the raffle to buy Super Bowl tickets. They bought the tickets, sold them for a profit within their self-directed IRA, and made an incredible rate of return. You can do that with your self-directed IRA. Okay? Now, you can't go to the game, but you can sell the tickets all day long. Okay? I've got another client that's doing financing, unsecured financing through his church. Okay? So he's got a self-directed IRA. He's got people in the church that have all this really high credit card debt. So he'll go buy their debt. Instead of them paying 29.99% or whatever is allowed, he'll charge them 12%. It's unsecured, but he's getting 12% on his money, able to pay off the debt, and it's unsecured, but the fact that he's doing it with people from his church, he feels like that's a form of security in itself. So that's something that's very possible.
Can he still go to church?
He better. Yeah. Because now it's just not about cleaning his soul, it's about making sure everyone else is showing up going to church as well. Yeah, absolutely. That's a good question. All this stuff can go inside your IRA. And again, you're not pulling money out. It's all being done with your IRA. Okay? So, takeaway number 1. What is a self-directed IRA? Self-directed is an industry term that means unrestricted. Okay, that's all it is. It's an IRA, and if you're with a company like Fidelity, the only reason you can't do all this stuff with them is because they won't let you. Right? Not because you can't, but if you call them up, first of all, what they probably would tell you is, no, you can't do that. What they should tell you is, we don't do that. But either they don't want to tell you, or they probably don't even know. Okay? So that's all all self-directed is an unrestricted retirement account. It allows you to buy anything that the law says is legal. You can contribute inside of an IRA, but you can convert a fairly unlimited amount of money due to some rules that changed in 2010. So if you've got some extra money and you can absorb the tax hit, see if doing a conversion to a Roth makes sense. Because once you pay that tax now, you don't ever have to pay taxes again. And where are taxes going? Who is the lady up here that had the point of view on taxes? Right? They're going up, right? And they're in ways that you won't even know it. So why not pay the tax hit now, and then that money grows tax-free forever? What about a SEP or a simple? Yeah, who had the simple here? Wow, I didn't know those things still existed. It's awesome, yeah. SEP IRAs are another really good IRA. These are more for small businesses versus individuals. You can self-direct them. What about a 401k? Maybe, right? It kind of depends. So if you're still with the company and you're actively employed or in service, chances are you can't pull your money out. And it's not because the plan can't be self-directed, it's because your employer has somewhat blocked their plan to prevent you from getting your money out. Okay? Now once you leave the company and you take that money with you, you can absolutely roll it with a self-directed IRA. If you are the employer, you can set up a self-directed 401k plan. You can allow that from the start. So you can self-direct the 401k in some instances, but if you're still in service of the company, chances are you can't. Now there are some companies that allow what's called an in-service transfer, an in-service rollover, an in-service distribution, and especially if you're over the age of 50, your plan may allow you to move a portion of the money out into a self-directed. So if you do have a large 401k plan and you're interested in getting invested in real estate or private businesses or whatever you want to legally get involved in, ask your HR person or your plan administrator whether or not they allow for in-service rollover, because you may be able to take some of that money out early. What about a pension plan? Again, maybe. If you're involved, especially if you work for a very large corporation, when you're in the company, chances are you won't be able to pull money out while you're still in the company. But usually when you retire, there's an option you can take. You can either take your pension as an annuity, or they'll let you take, and these are some really great words right here, a lump sum distribution, right? You can take that money out, and you can invest it and not be necessarily dependent on the plan. Okay, we'll talk about a scenario where the plan did just that, and what the differences were in a little bit. What about an individual 401k or solo cap? Yes. Absolutely. This is actually what I have. I have an LLC, which is what my company is, and we have 2 official employees. Everyone else is 1099. We have an independent 401k. Okay, it's great. We're going to talk about these a little bit later too. What about a 529 college savings plan? No, you can't do it. Okay, and again, that's something that's mandated. You have to invest this. There's 50 plan types depending on which state you open it up in. It's still a great way to save for college, high contributions. You cannot self-direct to 529. Trust me, I've tried. Because I've got 2 kids that are 5 years away from college. But what you can do is there's an educational savings account, or an ESA, that you can self-direct. Okay, and an ESA has smaller contribution limits, but it allows you to cover different types of expenses with education, some that don't even happen in college. So an ESA, if you're saving for a 529, it's an interesting way to open up another kind of account. You can self-direct it, and where the 529 may cover some things, the ESA may cover others. So something to look into if you're saving for college. What about an FSA, or flexible spending account? Does anyone have an FSA with their company? Got a couple people here. You cannot self-direct an FSA. And what an FSA is, it's a plan within your company where you put some money aside and use that to cover medical expenses. But if you don't spend it that year, it goes away. Okay, so if you have to spend it, you get a tax write-off for it, but you have to spend it. An HSA, or health savings account, is something you can self-direct. Okay? And basically, it kind of does the same thing, except in an HSA, when you put money inside of it, if you don't spend it that year, you can roll it over to following years. And what's the #1 expense people have when they retire? Health. So why not open up an HSA, start stashing money away, and if you have a good year, you don't use that money, you can continue to roll it over and compound it time over time over time. So something to look into. You need to have a high deductible plan that goes with it, but especially if you're self-employed, HSAs make a lot of sense. Opening up a self-directed IRA is very easy. Okay? There's 3 things you have to do. #1, you have to open the account. #2, you have to fund the IRA, and you can fund it by transferring money in or by making a contribution. And #3, you have to find an investment. It's really that simple. It's not that complicated.
Rollover IRA?
Yeah, a rollover IRA is...
You still have 401k, move from the company and give it.
Yeah, so he's asking a rollover IRA. Yeah, so on that particular slide, okay, that's step #2. You open up the account first, okay, then you fund it, and you would be funding it by rolling funds from an old 401k into the IRA. That's how you fund it. That's how most people fund these things, especially for real estate. Yeah.
If you roll funds, you need to liquidate the, like a rollover IRA to fund the self-directed. Do the assets need to be liquidated to their stocks or bonds?
The question is, do you have to liquidate what you own before you roll it over? The answer is no, you don't, but I highly recommend you do. So you can do an in-kind transfer, but chances are if you're rolling it self-directed, you're going to liquidate it anyway and buy real estate. So you might as well liquidate it because it's easier to transfer cash than it is to transfer a hard asset. Yes?
So if you'd mentioned that you don't take money out of the IRA, you're putting stuff into it, right?
Correct.
Okay, so when you say funding the IRA, do you have to put money into it before you can put real estate into it?
Yes, so the question is, do you have to put money into the IRA before you find an investment or before you buy an investment?
Well, it makes it sound like you have to put both in, money in, and then you can put real estate in.
Correct, because you can't buy real estate if you've got no money to buy it.
So it has to be money that was in there first, in the IRA first?
In some kind of retirement plan, it had to have been in there already. Not in the self-directed. I mean, obviously you're going to fund it with some type of transfer. You could also make a contribution. You know, and while contribution limits are fairly small on an IRA or a Roth IRA, they're a little bit bigger on SEPs and Simples and 401k. So you might be able to fund it and do a deal. But you could find a deal, okay, and then fund your account. And I get this call once a week now. Dave, hey, I talked to you 4 months ago. It's been great. Listen, I heard what you said. I find a deal. I'm getting ready to do I want to do it my self-directed IRA. Let's get started. I'm in escrow. Okay? Well, I'm sorry, but you know, you're going to need a really long escrow period because it does take some time to open up the self-directed IRA. Now, the custodians will turn it around like that. You know, at most they'll take 72 hours. Usually they're faster. Okay? But funding it can be complicated because Fidelity is really sad to see your money go. And even when you send that request in, they're not going to jump on it and just get your money there as quickly as you can. They're going to take some time. Okay? So that process takes some time. And if you're already in escrow and the clock's ticking, right? And then you probably, because you didn't have the self-directed IRA, you probably wrote the contract in your name. And now you want to transfer it to your self-directed IRA. What does that sound like? Kind of sounds like self-dealing, doesn't it? Right? So you kind of risk yourself to a little bit of a problem there. And the number one thing that really hurts people is if you pull a property off escrow as a seller, what do you want from the buyer in escrow? A signed contract and a deposit. Okay? Well, how are you going to give someone a deposit if you've got no money in the self-directed IRA? Okay, so try working that one out with the seller. Well, yeah, I'm going to use my self-directed IRA. I don't have a deposit, and I need an extra 30 days in escrow. Right? Good luck, especially in today's environment when you're competing with all cash buyers. So step one, open the account, fund it, then go find your deal. Okay? If you to set up a self-directed IRA on almost every custodian, it costs you $50. Okay, so if you transfer all that money, and you decide you don't want to invest in real estate, the only thing it's going to cost you is $50. You can always unwind it and roll the money out someplace else. Go ahead and set up the entity first and then find a deal.
Not to get off track, what are the contribution limits for SEP or Roth?
I'll give you what I understand them to be in 2013, okay? And there's differences whether you're over 50 or under 50. For a traditional IRA and a Roth IRA, I believe it's $5,500 if you're under 50, and then $6,500 if you're over 50, 55? 50, right? Is that right? Those numbers are right? Yeah. Okay, so you get a catch-up amount if you're over the age of 50. If you're in a SEP or a Simple, it's somewhat tied to how much revenue your company makes. It's usually around $50,000. Okay? Same thing for a solo K or a 401k plan. Okay? Now, how you make those contributions are somewhat different based on the rules of the plan. Some pension plans, you can contribute a lot higher amount. And if you're really killing it and you have a business model where you know you're going to be killing it for a few years, a pension is actually a really good way to go. But you take some risk there, because once you sign that thing up, you're kind of agreeing to make a certain amount of contributions every single year for whatever time limit it is.
Can you take it back out and go the other way?
Yes. Yeah, if you open up a self-directed IRA, can you go back the other way? Fidelity would be so happy to see you go back. Absolutely. Yeah. Now, if you try to close down your account, some of the custodians have what's called a cancellation fee. Make sure you read in their fee disclosure how much those fees are. Right? There's actually one company that used to charge close to $2,000 if you canceled out your account. So make sure you understand the termination fees on the account, even though you're not planning on terminating it anytime soon. In case you don't find anything and you want to get back out, you want to make sure it's not punitive to get out.
So is it possible to roll a piece of property into a self-directed if there was no money needed? Say I rolled a house into a land trust and then deeded the portion of it to, and there was really no money involved?
Okay, so you rolled the house, which means you own the house already?
No. I'm buying the house. The seller rolls it into a land trust.
Okay.
And then he says he agrees to then transfer the land trust to my self-directed IRA with no cost. Because I don't really need an escrow. There's no transfer of title. There's no deeds involved. There's just the transfer of the ownership of the trust.
You're basically just retitling the property in the name of the self-directed IRA.
Right.
Correct me if I'm wrong here. You probably can do that, but you're still going to have to put some money in the account because most of the custodians have a minimum balance.
Right.
But yeah, you don't have to, if that's all you're going to put in is transfer the asset. Well, actually, I take that back. You can't just transfer the asset in because it would be considered a contribution to the IRA, and chances are the value of that is going to exceed whatever your contribution limit is inside that IRA plan. Because you can only put in $5,000 a year inside of an IRA. And if that property is worth $200,000, you can't just stuff it inside of a self-directed IRA.
What if you paid like $100 for it as a consideration?
If you find a property for $100, come find me.
No, I'm just saying, if you, in that scenario, you're working.
Yeah, that's a pretty complicated question. That's actually one where, hey, I'm not an attorney, right? So we have attorneys we want you to work with on that one. If you found that deal and you're trying to somehow stuff that into a self-directed IRA, is it possible? Maybe. Might be the right answer. Yeah, exactly right. Did you buy that from the Russian mafia before Cyprus collapsed? That's what I want to know. Yeah, one more. Go ahead. Okay, so the question is, if I buy a piece of property with a self-directed IRA, can I get traditional financing? Yes. No, you can't. It's illegal. But you can get financing. Okay? So traditional financing is usually called recourse financing. Okay? So you, as the buyer of the property, beyond whatever asset the bank has, they also kind of have you to go after. If for some reason you default, they have recourse to you, the individual buyer, as well. Well, since you and your IRA are separate legal entities, the only recourse that's allowed when you borrow money with an IRA is the asset itself. So it's non-recourse financing, which is a nice, clean, simple answer for hard money. So hard money or seller financing you can do all day long. There are some taxes associated with that, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Okay, I've got the clock ticking, so I'm going to move on, and we'll get into some of these questions and we'll get into some of the examples. Just to give you an idea of some of the players, here's some of the custodians that we deal with. There are 400 other custodians out there, and I know you've never heard of any of them, but these are companies that have been around for a long time. They've been doing it for a long time, good reputations. You also have people that offer investments, and kind of in between, you've got professionals that are helping to advise people. Okay, so that's kind of where my company lies. I'm also a realtor. I know we had another realtor over here who does a lot of investing. If you're not dealing with self-directed IRAs, you should be, because it's a great source of capital. Shaking your head as a yes I am or yes I'm going to. It's a good idea, good. We can talk more about that. Some certified like independent financial planners are getting involved in this as well, because for them it's an interesting planning tool, because you can do things beyond just real estate. There's other kind of assets that you can do. So some of them are getting involved in this as well.
Once you funded your IRA, is there a way where you write a check, buy something that you fund, or does the custodian?
So the question is once you fund the IRA, can you write a check to make the investment? And the answer is you can. There's a structure called a checkbook IRA. It's really a special purpose LLC, and we'll talk about that in about 15 slides. And you can do that. Okay, let's get into some case studies, because I think now that's kind of the overview, and again, Brian did a really good overview before. If anyone has any further questions, swing your arm, hit a custodian, and ask them, or ask me after the meeting. Okay? We're going to go through 3 case studies. We're going to use one that was a client who just did a very simple self-directed IRA. We're going to go through one where someone used a special purpose LLC, which is the question we just asked, and we have another where someone used a solo K. Okay? Our first case study, let me introduce you to Jim. Of course, the names have been changed to protect the innocent. Okay? But Jim is a medical professional. He's age 47 years old. He had $85,000 in a previous 401k plan that he wanted to invest in real estate. Okay, so he had a bigger plan, but he just wanted to move a portion into a self-directed IRA. You can do that. You don't have to roll all the funds out. You can do a partial transfer. Jim was looking for cash flow and growth. You know, he's 47 years old. Is he old or is he young? He's young, absolutely. Absolutely young. Wet behind the ears still, if you ask me. And he wants to be moderately passive. You know, he's still fully employed. He's running a practice. He doesn't have time to be, you know, out there looking for deals. So he's looking for moderately passive kinds of investments. And he was willing to leverage. He wanted a loan. Okay? Takeaway number 3 is you can't invest money you don't have. Okay? You've got to start by saving. Okay? So even if you're just getting started, and then we had the college guys over here, right? You know, wholesaling is great, right? But it's a lot of work to wholesale, and it's really hard to get started. And even that's not something that's going to help you build long-term wealth. That's kind of the immediate transaction type of wealth. To really get involved in real estate, you've got to have some capital to play with. Okay? So the first thing to do is open up an IRA and just start saving, or open up a bank account. You know, spend less than you make. It's the only way you're going to get involved in real estate. Real estate is the ultimate get-rich-slow scheme. If anyone's telling you it's the get-rich-fast scheme, chances are something's going on there. Don't pay $16,000 for that particular course. Basically how it works is, let's say you've got a Fidelity IRA. You've got $200,000 in it. Okay? This was from an old company that he worked for. Okay? Basically what he did is he opened up a self-directed IRA, and he rolled $85,000 into the custodian. Okay, so he still has $115,000 in the market. Okay, and then from there, he actually took $80,000 of it, and he made 3 investments. Okay, he put a down payment down on a rental house. He bought a trustee, a share of a first trustee, and he also bought a full note. Okay. Now, those prices are real. I know we're all here in Southern California, and that seems like there's something amiss, but that's what the rest of the world looks like once you get, you know, west of the or east of the Colorado River, or at least north of the 215, whatever that freeway is. But it's important to see that you can get some diversity here. Okay, if you've got 85 grand and you're looking to do one deal, and you're still kind of new at this, don't put all 85 grand into one deal, because you might be wrong. Okay? You might make a mistake. It's better to try to find ways of diversifying this out. Make a couple of smaller bets just in case something happens. Because you may have been right and something could happen with the market that flipped. Okay, so diversify it out. This particular gentleman, he kept $5,000 in cash. Any idea why? Absolutely, right? If you're buying real property, first of all, if you're buying a note, the amount of capital you may need is smaller. Okay? You just don't have that much exposure when you're buying paper. But if you buy property, at any point in time, something can happen, right? And it usually happens right after you close escrow. Okay? So make sure you keep some cash on hand if you're going to be buying real property, especially if you're going to have to renovate. Yeah?
Do you have to have property management on that rental house?
The question is, you have to have property management on the rental house. The answer is you don't have to, but I recommend it. You can manage your own property. Okay, but you can't charge a fee, okay, you can't earn a commission, okay, and you still can't go in and fix something. But yeah, you can absolutely do it. You just have to make sure that, you know, you're not getting paid for it.
That $36,000, did you say that was a down payment on the house, or that was the purchase price of the house?
That was the down payment. So this particular investor bought a $72,000 house in Tennessee, put $36,000 down, and got a loan for $36,000 from the seller. The seller financed it. Okay? Now that was a turnkey house. You didn't have to renovate it. It actually was already been renovated, had a client, our tenant inside of it. So, you know, that was a pretty clean deal, but we still kept $5 grand behind just in case. Yeah? Is there a limit as to how much house you can buy? Only based on how much financing you can get. You know, most of the non-recourse lenders aren't going to lend you more than, like, you know, 50% of the value of the house.
What I mean in terms of the IRA, if you don't contribute $5,000 a year,
you have to save.
so you have to have money there.
Or you got to get really creative and find someone who's willing to give you that money.
So you leverage it. So if you have $10,000 in the IRA, you go leverage $20,000 on a house. Why don't you put in $100,000 on a house?
If you can find someone who will give you that loan. But absolutely. For example, absolutely. Perfectly legal. Now, there are some taxes there that become kind of punitive, but you can do it.
So you can partner though with somebody else besides, like you could be returning from your self-directed and somebody else may not be. Is that possible?
Yeah, so the question is can you partner a joint venture with someone? And absolutely. Actually, this trustee he bought for 11 grand, that was actually a partial, he bought a portion of that note.
So that was all this issue.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you got 10 grand, you're looking to get involved in real estate, and you can't get that financing, go find some. Who here has money in an old IRA sitting and rotting away at a financial institution? There you go. You know, go talk to one of these guys. I'm sure they'd love to do it. Oh, by the way, who here wants to buy property with their self-directed IRA? If you think that sounds kind of cool. Who here wants to maybe lend money to someone else who wants to go buy property in their self-directed IRA? There you go. Match made in heaven, right? Work with each other. If someone does the deal, someone finds the property, and all of a sudden you're in business. Yes, sir.
Typically, do you have to do some long-term cash flow planning? How sufficient cash in that IRA should take property taxes?
Yeah. The question is do you have to, what kind of planning do you have to make sure that you have enough capital to cover all the expenses of the property? Doing that is no different than owning rental property outside of your IRA. Absolutely. Yep. Got to have some extra, and hopefully it cash flows, right? So that's the big thing. Is if you're buying something that doesn't cash flow, well, you're automatically, I think, set up for failure. I don't believe in the hey, buy something and hold it and just wait for the appreciation. That's a good strategy, but I like let's get that cash flow right now, and if I get the appreciation, we can do that. Okay? Last question.
Does the IRA itself provide liability protection so that if somebody sues you, they can't pay?
That's a great question. The question was, does the IRA itself offer liability protection? And not really. A little bit, but not really. If you're really involved in an asset that puts you at risk for some high liability, like commercial or multifamily, something like that, where lots of people are going through, you probably want to set up an LLC, and we'll talk about that in the next example on how to do that. Yeah. Yep, and then basically the self-directed IRA, instead of buying the property, it'll buy shares of the LLC, and the LLC will go buy the property. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. Okay, taking title in IRA. This is kind of how that transaction works, and I'm going to walk you through the rental house, okay? You're the owner, you have a self-directed IRA, and the IRA owns the investment. Okay, there's another party in escrow, okay, because really you're not signing off on the paperwork, your self-directed custodian is. Okay, so there's going to be a little extra time in it. And they're usually pretty good, usually. But make sure you've got a buffer there just in case. What's actually going to be on title is the name of your IRA custodian, FBO, your name, IRA, some of them require your account number. But this actually goes on title, and FBO stands for benefit of. Okay, so it would be American Estate and Trust for benefit of David Coe IRA. That's what it would be if I had a self-directed IRA using American Estate and Trust as my custodian. The IRA owns the property. Okay, so it's going to sign off on everything. But when the documents come, you're the one who has to approve the actual contracts. Okay, so you sign the contracts as being read and approved, not as the buyer, and then you submit it to your custodian, and they will sign off on everything. They'll send all the money. They have to make sure that the deed is in the proper titling because they need to be on title. You're still going to have title. You're probably still going to have escrow if you're doing a traditional deal. If you're buying, some type of trust being transferred in, then obviously it's a different process. But traditionally, this is how it works. Okay, and the client can manage the investment. Okay, you can manage it as long as you don't, charge yourself or pay yourself a fee for doing that. As long as you don't do any of it. Any fees the property needs comes out of the money that you're either getting from the cash flow or that you set aside just in case. Any income that comes from the property goes back into the IRA. Okay, the IRA is the owner of the property. There are taxes on IRAs. Okay, so this is all about tax-free investing, and for the most part, everything we're going to talk about tonight is completely tax-free. But there is two types of taxes on IRAs. The first is a tax called UBIT, unrelated business income tax. Basically, this is not an IRA tax. This is a tax on nonprofit entities that make money doing something that's kind of beyond their nonprofit scope. Okay, so the example I always use is, let's say you're a church, You decide to open up a liquor store. Well, maybe not a good example. Maybe you open up a gas station. Or maybe you could be a Catholic church and you don't care. But you open up, that's not your purpose. You're not there to sell gasoline. That's not why the IRS gave you that tax-free benefit. And it's not fair to all the other gas stations out there that are having to pay taxes because your prices can be lower. Okay? Your self-directed IRA can kind of be the same way. And usually where this becomes a problem is when you're flipping houses. Okay? If you're a sophisticated investor and you've got a system set up and you're flipping 2 to 3 houses a month, right? You've got teams and you've got crews and you're doing the little yellow postcards and you're posting bandit signs, you're doing all that stuff. The IRS is going to come in and say, wait a minute, you're running a business. It's not fair that you're not paying taxes on all this stuff and your competitors out there that are using cash are. Okay, so in that instance, it's going to charge you a tax. It's called UBIT. Usually it's involved with fixing and flipping. And as long as you do it more as a hobby versus a profession, UBIT usually won't matter. Okay? What's the number? No one really knows. But usually what I tell people is if you do 3 or less, you're probably going to be okay. Okay? But if you're doing 3 or less, and you've got a very sophisticated system set up to do those 3, you could still be exposed to UBIT. So it's just something you got to be careful with. Yes, sir?
What if you have a partner unrelated to you who has the same business and you actually loaned your IRA money to him, and in return, so you're not actually doing the flipping, but your partner is doing the flipping business, and in return you get, you know, a share bag as an equity share agreement or something like that. Would that apply for the UBIT?
The first trustee with an equity share on the back end. Okay, chances are no it won't.
What if it's not first trustee? What if it's, you know, unsecured or second or third?
You can do it that way. I wouldn't recommend it. I mean, if you're going to be in business, he should allow you to put a deed against it just in case. But you could be unsecured. That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, and then all you're doing is you're lending.
Right.
You're not involved in the acquisition. You're not involved in the renovation. You're not helping find the property. All you're doing is lending the money. And you just made an investment. You can probably get around it.
Is there a cap as to how much you could get back? Let's say if you have $5 grand, you lend it to him, but in return you're getting 20 back. Let's say.
There's no cap. You
No
can make
cap.
as much money as you want in IRAs. See Mitt Romney.
Okay.
Right? How much money does he have in his self-directed IRA? 20 to 100 million. Okay, that's how much money he made because he invested in explosive growth things through Bain Capital. All the deals running through Bain Capital, he was also investing in them using a self-directed IRA. He did pretty well. There's another tax that you have to consider, and it's involving leverage. Okay, it's called UDFI, or unrelated debt finance income. If you lever up an IRA and you make a profit, then the IRS will tax your IRA based on how much you leveraged. Okay? So let's say, for example, you put down 40%. On this example, let's say you put down 60%, and you got a 40% loan. Okay, so you bought a $100,000 house, you put 60 grand down, and you got a seller finance back loan of 40 grand. And let's say that property netted $10,000 a year, just for keeping the math simple, especially while I'm up here on stage and not having too complicated math. If you made that 10 grand a year, then you have to pay taxes on $4,000. Okay? And there's some exemptions you get. You can also offset that with some of the other expenses of the property, but there is a tax associated with that deal. Okay? That deal, that tax is usually pretty, you can kind of mitigate that. You can mostly offset that. You'll probably have enough expenses to cover that. Where this thing becomes a little bit more complicated is when you sell the property. Right? Because maybe you bought it for 100, but 3 years later you sell it for 150, and you still have 37% property leverage on the deal. Okay? Well, now 37% of the 50 grand that you made in profit is now subject to a tax. And it's not the worst thing in the world because you did just go make 50 grand. Okay? And there's ways you can mitigate the UDFI. There's different ways you can season the debt. There's different ways of offsetting that with timing. It's just something that you should be aware of. And if you're going to do leverage in an IRA, make sure you work with someone who understands that tax implication and can advise you on different ways of either minimizing it or at least reporting it. And maybe in some cases, completely limiting it.
What if you buy it with a lot of leverage, and then you hold it long enough that the pay off?
So the question is, what if you hold it long enough? And that's definitely one of the strategies. So if we have someone in a self-directed IRA who leverages, and it's getting a cash flow back. Well, what are you going to do with the cash? Right? You can't pull it out, you can't spend it. Well, why not just take all the cash and pay down the debt? Okay? The way the IRS looks at it is they're going to look at how much leverage you have for the last year that you own the property. So if you had all the debt paid off, held it for a year, and then sold it, well, then your leverage on that deal is 0%. You don't have the money unlocked. And maybe you can't get rid of all of it, but maybe you pay down that 40% loan down to 15%. Okay, and then you sell. Well, now you're only paying taxes on 15% of that 50 grand. You get a $1,000 exemption. It now becomes a little more manageable. You can pencil it out. No, profit is not contribution, it's earnings. And you can make an unlimited amount of earnings inside your self-directed, or any item. Yeah. Okay, this is kind of hard to see, but just so you kind of have an idea of what this looks like. This is an actual deal, by the way. This is the client's annual summary. In year one, they basically made $7,152 off this deal. Okay, that's $596 a month. That's an 8.94% cash-on-cash return. Okay, not a bad deal. Okay, so that kind of stuff is possible inside your self-directed IRA. Plus, he's also earning some appreciation on 2 of those investments as well. First pop quiz. Owning real estate inside of your IRA doesn't make sense if there are no tax breaks, right? No. It doesn't, it's not about buying real estate inside your IRA or outside your IRA. It's about you have an IRA, how are you going to invest it? Okay? You could buy real estate, or you could buy stocks, or you could buy mutual funds. So make sure whatever you're investing in, you understand. Okay? It doesn't matter. You're not getting a tax breaks, but you're also you're not charging you any taxes. So it's a pretty good deal. If I buy the property in Mammoth, can I use it for 1 week a year? No, it's self-dealing. You can't do that. Can I rent it to my son if he pays full market rent? No, it doesn't matter. Okay? You can't. It's a disqualified party. Do I have to hire a property manager if I want to hold the real estate in my IRA? No, we're going to answer that. Can I get a loan to create leverage? Absolutely. So you guys are asking all the questions. You kind of stole the thunder here. Is it possible to avoid or minimize UDFI if I take a loan? Absolutely. Make sure you're working with someone who understands it. All right, case study number 2, and I've got about 12 more minutes here, so I'm going to kind of go a little faster here. Barbara and William, okay, one was a nurse, one's an auto professional. They're still young, 65 and 67, okay, but they just retired. Barbara worked for a very large hospital group. William worked for an auto dealership. Barbara actually had a really large pension, okay, and she had the opportunity of taking that pension out or getting the annuity. Okay, her annuity would have paid her about $1,500 a month for the rest of her life, okay? And if she lived 3 years, that's it, okay? What she was able to do was to pull that out as a lump sum, put it inside of a self-directed IRA, and now she's buying real estate, okay? And now she's earning twice that amount on a cash-on-cash basis, plus she's got assets that are survivable. When she passes away, she can leave them to her family, and she's also getting appreciation, something you don't get in an annuity. Once you get that payment, it's pretty much fixed for the rest of your life. Okay, so those of you that have a pension, something to consider when you retire, look at taking all the money out and investing it yourself. They make a profit, right? So when they're investing it, they're also keeping some of that money on their own, whoever's running your pension plan. What they did is because they had a husband and wife, 2 separate entities, they actually set up what's called a special purpose LLC, also known as a checkbook IRA or real estate IRA, kind of like the street legal terms of this thing. What a special purpose LLC is, it's an LLC that has a special purpose. The special purpose is that the investors in the LLC is qualified for ERISA money. Okay, so there has to be language in the operating agreement that kind of limits the LLC from doing something that would be a prohibited transaction. Okay, don't do this off of legal Zoom. Okay, make sure you work with an attorney who understands how to do this, because the penalties, if you do something wrong, are severe. Okay? What they got mostly was the ability to combine their stuff. Okay? So now they've got one entity. The husband owns one part of it. The wife owns the other part of it. Both happen to be using their IRAs. They've got a checkbook. The LLC is a legal entity. It has an EIN. It opened up a bank account. And now they're investing all these things through their LLC. Okay? this is kind of how it worked. You know, most of the money they had was in the pension plan. What they actually did is roll some of that money to a self-directed custodian. Actually, they rolled all that money to a self-directed custodian. But then what they did is they actually only funded the LLC with 250 grand. Okay, so they wanted to take 100 grand and actually keep it in some more traditional things. And they rolled that out with a traditional financial planner who's helping them invest in that. Then with them, they took the 250 grand, they spent 245,000 of it and bought a range of very passive assets. They bought into some different funds, they bought a couple of notes, they bought a mobile home park, they did a trust deed fund, they funded a couple of flips, okay? All very passive stuff. They've got nothing to do with the day-to-day operations of any of those businesses. They just get paid a rate of return and they're secured against whatever asset they're in. Okay, but 250 grand, you can kind of get some really nice diversity here if you know where to find opportunities.
Question, on two previous slides, it said you can use the cash flow for living expenses. How is that not self-dealing?
Okay, so that's a good question. I forgot to cover that. These guys are now 65 and 67, so they can legally start pulling money out to live off of, okay? Now, you can do that at any point in time. Just before you hit 59 and a half, you've got to pay a penalty on top of that. So for them, their strategy was taking the money that all this stuff made, and quarterly they make withdrawals and pay taxes on it. This is how they're funding their retirement. And they got Social Security and a couple other things as well. But where they were looking at maybe $1,200 to $1,500 a month, they're now making about $2,500 a month, which allows them to have a little nicer retirement. And over time, that amount can grow because they are appreciating and they can make more money over time.
So if an investment goes into a special purpose LLC and they are the limited partners of the LLC, is the trust or the self-directed IRA the management part of it? And if they're running it and doing it, do they collect the salary or is that part?
Yeah, so no, the self-directed IRAs are just the members, and they're like silent members. Okay, so what you do is you form the LLC, you submit it to the custodians for funding, okay? They fund it, and they're out. Okay? You, the owner of the IRA, you also manage the LLC, and you control it. Again, you can't pay yourself a salary for doing that, but you can be the manager of the LLC, you can make decisions on the LLCs. If the LLC has to file a tax return, obviously you got to file a tax return. It's here in California, welcome to $800 a year. That's something you have to do. So I'm going to just kind of, because we're running out of time here, I'm going to get through a couple more examples, and I'll stay behind and answer questions all night long until I got to drive back on the 5-freeway here. So for these particular, they're making about almost $2,200 a month in cash, okay, per month. They're basically making about 26 grand a year off of these investments. Quick pop quiz. If I'm a real estate agent, can I take a commission on the purchase of the sale? Can't do it. We already talked about that. It's okay if I do some of the work, right? Can't do it, right? Can you hire your brother if he's a really good contractor? All day long. He's not a prohibited party. Have him send you an invoice. Either submit it or write a check if you have it through a special purpose LLC. Oh, yeah, there you go. Kind of, if I hold it for more than a year, can I avoid capital gains? Yeah, trick question. There are none, right? So yeah, you can, but there are no gains. You can sell it in 4 hours. It doesn't matter. How many properties can I safely flip before the U-bid kicks in? Yeah, about 3, right? So it depends on kind of what your business model is, but if you're doing 3 or less, you're going to be okay. If I run out of money, can I transfer more money to my IRA? Absolutely. If you have another 401k plan, you can transfer more money in, you can make a contribution. I think Brian was talking about it. You can get a loan. You can bring in a partner. There's all kinds of ways you can continue to get some additional funding if you got strapped. But the most important thing you can do is just to maintain some cash just in case. Don't spend all of it, especially if you're going to own property. There's expensive property. I'll get you. Go ahead. Quick question.
To get a loan, you can't get a traditional loan. It has to be over money.
Got to be non-recourse hard money. It's going to be expensive, but if it's that or losing your property, it's not that expensive, right? All right, last case study. Gabby's a realtor, and again, where are my realtors? Right, solo K, I'm telling you, is the way to go. Michael's an attorney, age 54, 56, still very young. Gabby's a long-time self-employed person. As a matter of fact, she's a realtor, so she's just really hitting her prime, right? Michael's a long-time employee at a law firm. He just started his own practice. Okay, they're both self-employed. They have no full-time employees. They want limited exposure to the stock market. That was their goal. Okay? They also have 2 kids in college. One's actually in Harvard. What they did is open up a solo K, and they opened it up in Gabby's real estate practice. Okay, and then Michael kind of helps like do some marketing, so he's kind of a part of the company. They each have their own separate account. A solo K is like a SEP on steroids. Okay, it's got all these bells and whistles. You have to have no full-time employees to be eligible. The advantages are you have higher contributions for moderate earners. Okay, so if you only make 200 grand a year, you can contribute more to a solo K with that same income that you could to a SEP. There's no income limitations on a Roth. Almost all 401k plans have the ability for you to make a Roth contribution. Okay, and if you don't have a solo K and you make a certain amount of money, you can get phased out with a Roth. You can take a loan from a 401k, you can from an IRA. So part of their strategy was just in case there was an expense in college, they wanted to be able to borrow from themselves, pay themselves back, versus having to take a student loan out. And oh, by the way, these things can be UDFI exempt depending on the type of financing you get. So anyone that comes to us that wants to borrow money and leverage up an IRA, we'll try to steer them to a solo K if we can, because it kind of just takes the whole UDFI thing off the table. Oh, you don't need a custodian with a solo K. You can be the trustee of your own account. If you have an IRA, you have to have a third-party custodian. It's mandated by law. But technically, a 401k is a kind of trust. And you can be the trustee of your own trust. Okay, so whenever we help someone set these things up, we appoint them as the trustee of their own trust. Basically work like this. They opened up a solo K. They had 300 grand in an old 401k plan. They rolled 190 out, kept 110 in. And then from there, they bought a bunch of stuff as well. Okay? They kept 6 grand in cash just in case. And they've got a couple of different funds, some notes, all kinds of good stuff. They're making tons of money. Takeaway number 4, okay? Who you invest with is more important than what you invest in. Okay, make sure you're dealing with good people first, then look at the deal. Okay? You'll be far better off making a bad investment with good people than you will be making a good investment with bad people. Okay, make sure you know who you're investing with. All right, here's the final exam in the home stretch here. When deciding on an investment, I should always look for the highest possible return, right? Absolutely not, okay? You want to look for the highest possible return of sleep. If you're invested in something that doesn't allow you to sleep at night, it doesn't matter if you're going to make 40% in 4 days, okay? If all you're worried about, and especially when you do with your IRA, trust me, it feels different. Okay, this money you can't, that contribution you made in 1997, if you lose it, you can't go back and recontribute it. It's gone. Okay, it's going to feel a lot different. So make sure you're picking something that matches your sensibilities and not just chasing some high rate of return. Should I wait to find an investment and then open up a self-directed retirement account? If anyone here calls me and says, "Hey Dave, I heard you speak and I found an investment, I want to open up a self-directed IRA," I'm going to hang up on you. Okay? Find the account first, then go find the deal. What's more important, the operator or the investor? The operator, the people you're dealing with. Okay? Make sure you're dealing with good people. And last thing, what's the most important thing to learn about being a real estate investor? I think it's evaluating risk. So I think any deal that you look at, if you don't understand what all the risk factors are, then that deal's not right for you. You either need more education or you've got to go find someone who can help explain what it is. Make sure you understand the risk with any deal you're going to do, inside your IRA, outside your IRA. That's the most important thing. Thanks a bunch. By the way, time says 33 seconds. Andrew? That's right, 2 in a row, baby. Again, if you want a copy of the presentation, text FREEDOM to 24587 and you'll get a copy of it. Thank you very much. I'll be in the bar if anyone has further questions. I'd love to answer them. Thank you very much.